Hello my friends, welcome back to Wild Tracks. So I'm planning to do some canyoneering in the next month or two, and one of the activities that you do quite regular during canyoning is abseiling or rappelling. However, it has been a little while the last time I did some abseiling, so today I want to use it as a kind of a refresher. So I'm looking for a nice location, specifically for a nice rock feature that allows me to practice it. So I'm looking for something that's not too big. So I got to this point here, and that looks pretty ideal for a very first abseil. There's a nearly vertical wall here. It's maybe a good 4.5, maybe 5 meters. And there's a little step here that you don't abseil, but you step down out of it. Most importantly is good anchor points. Again, I can see a few options here. I can see a big tree over there and a few smaller ones that I could use, but I'm probably going to use that big one over there. Now I've got a 20-meter rope with me. Intention is to use as a double rope. If it's too short, obviously I go to a single rope abseil, but I think I should be good. Just a quick inspection of the line I would pick. I will come here, walk backwards, and here the actual abseil starts. There's a dead small tree here. I will remove that first, just to make sure there's nothing in my way. So let's get the gear out and set up the anchor. I'm going to use a long sling to wrap around the tree as anchor point. I need obviously my harness. I don't need this. I'm going to use a prusik, rope. I don't need this. I don't use the gloves today. And I don't need this, so I can put this away. Okay, so I've got a nice big tree here, which looks healthy. Should make for a good anchor. You want to keep the sling as slow as possible to the ground. Ooh, interesting. It only just fits. Okay. This is quite a long sling. I think it's 2 meters thin. But here you go. That will work. Traveling in that direction. So we're moving in that direction, and then we abseil from there. And as you can see, I have plenty of space here to set myself up, tie myself into the rope. If the anchor point is way closer to the abseil, let's say here, I will put my harness on first, tie myself into the anchor, and then I set myself up in the ropes. But here I got a good 4 meters, maybe even more, from the tree where I'm setting up my anchor to the point of abseil. Let's put it on the harness. So before you put in the harness, just double check that none of the loops are twisted. You want to make it nice and straight. As soon as something is twisted, it loses some of its strength as well and integrity, so be mindful of that. Also make sure that the harness is the right way up, so these gear loops should facing down in my case. Alright, tighten the belt like this, so I can't adjust my leg loops, they are pretty much one length. So I'm going to use an extended belay. I have a sling between the main loop of the harness and the belaying device. I just feel there's a little bit more natural feel for me. I have my left hand normally high and my right hand lower. If you don't have this extension and the belaying device sits here, then your hands are really close to your body. That's how I started off doing abseiling and belaying people. But I feel now an extension is a little bit more comfortable, but that's all personal, you know. Cool, so this is all good. Now I'm gonna set up the rope and tie myself into the rope. Just one other thing when you prepare and set up your anchor point. I just had a quick look at my line. Just want to make sure there are no trip hazards before I reach the point of abseil. And as you can see, it's very leafy. There are some branches. I already removed a few, some bigger ones. They should be okay, but you have to be mindful, you know, of what could be in your path before you reach the actual abseil. Alright, let's guide the rope through the carabiner. As I mentioned before, the intention is to use double rope if it reached the bottom of my abseil. So I need to check that obviously. Let's first align the two sides, make them even. Like this. And it's good practice to put a knot at the end of the two ropes so that you can't abseil off the rope. Again, in my case, that shouldn't be a problem, but it is good practice to do that as a routine. Alright, so I'm going to toss the rope down the abseil. Before I do so, make sure it's obviously clear, there's no one down there. And as I mentioned earlier, making sure the rope is actually touching the bottom, which it does. Something I didn't show you earlier, but I put a backup to the sling that I applied as an anchor. I didn't have enough screw gate carabiners, so I use these two clip ones. And in that case, what you do is you put the gate in opposite directions and the openings. Alright, I'm gonna use my helmet. By the way, I'm not using a rock climbing helmet. It's actually a bicycle helmet, but that is actually doing a good enough job for this kind of activities. So I'm gonna connect myself to the rope, take the belaying device off, get the two strands of rope, push it through the belaying device, and now clip the screw gate carabiner through 3 loops, both strands of the rope and the cable from the belaying device. Alright, and check that screw gate is closed. Alright, so one more thing to do is the safety block, and I'm going to use a prusik for that. So I'm going to apply the prusik under my belaying device. It's really important that once you have set up the prusik and connected to a loop, in my case leg loop, there is no possibility the prusik will move up and gets into the belaying device. If it does that, it can prevent the belaying vise from working. It will not apply friction to the rope, and you will start and keep on sliding down. So for that reason alone, you keep the prusik sling, keep it fairly short. So I'm wrapping the prusik cord 3 times around the ropes. This is 1. 2. Last time. And this longer end is now attached to the carabiner and my leg loop. Close the gate again. I'm all set up, but before I go down, I want to make sure that that push stick is actually working. So I'm going to lean back and let the push stick hold me. Alright, let me check everything. I know that carabiner at the tree is locked. This one is locked. This one is locked. Push stick works. So we're all set up. So we're going to slowly make my way to the point of abseil. It's a bit tricky that the rock is a little bit in an angle, so I have to move a little bit. The push stick makes it a little bit awkward, a little bit slow, but here we are. The rock is a little bit in an angle, I have to move a little bit. Push stick makes it a little bit awkward, a little bit slow. So I started off with a little bit of an angle, so I adjusted a little bit. Be mindful that the ropes move a little bit over the rock as well, so they could potentially obviously get cut. So another thing to be aware of. But that's all. So what I noticed coming over the edge, I started a little bit to the left, but the rock is not straight on. It is a little bit in a funny angle, so I had to adjust to the right a bit. It's not much, but be mindful that the rope under tension moves over the edge of the rock as well, and potentially could damage the rock, obviously, so that's something you want to be mindful of. And obviously, if you start on such a funny angle, if you not adjust, the rope eventually will pull you to that direction, so you can actually lose your control somewhat, so be mindful of that as well. Okay, let's back up. So there's one more thing I'd like to try out today, and that's ascending. Something I've done in the past, but quite a long time ago, and it's not something I've done often. So I'm going to try it out today. And you need a little bit of a different kit for that. Most importantly, you need some sort of ascending device. Now this is actually a left-handed one. Ascending device is basically a handhold or a grip that grips the rope. The rope goes in here, it's closed, and basically you can press it up, but when you pull it, there's friction and it will not slide down. However, before I attach that, I'm going to remove my normal belaying device. I'm not going to use this for ascending, and I need to attach one of the strands of rope to my harness, because the ascending works only with one rope. So let me do that quickly. Grab one of the strands. I'm going to use a figure 8 knot for that. See if I can show that easily. So figure 8 knot. Then the working end goes through both loops of the harness. This one, the bottom one, and from my top part of the harness. Like this. And then I simply follow this figure 8 knot in opposite fashion to complete the knot. Like this. Make sure it's nice dressed, as they call it, that the rope's not crossing in an odd way, like this. Both loops. Alright, well, that's important because I'm only going to work with this rope now. So we're going to reduce some of the slack. Alright, now we're going to set up for the ascending. So first I'm going to attach this ascender to my working rope. As you can see, if I pull, it grips and I can press it up. Alright, a few more things we need is what they called a grigri. I think grigris, I believe, is in a Petzl copyrighted brand, I reckon, I'm not so sure. But it's a small device that can be used as a belaying device. Now, I don't have a grigri per se, but something that works quite similar. And it does a very similar job as the ascender. So you add the rope in here, close it, yeah, and this again works upwards, yeah. So when you pull on it, you see there's friction. Now, I'm going to use this similar as a belaying device. This is where I'm going to remove the slack with. So in order to go up, the 3 things you have to do: you press up with your leg from this loop, you pull on the ascender, and you remove the slack to this device. Now, I have not used this setup before, so it's going to be quite a bit of an experiment. I'm going to attach the grigri to my harness similar as you would do with any other belaying device. I think what you're aiming for is to bring the harness, the grigri, as close as possible to the ascender so you can pull up again and press up. Yeah. Now let's see how we go. Okay, I want to start from a position where I'm actually hanging in the system. Okay, now I lift up my leg, pull. I got a bit of a, let's see if it works. That's hard work, tell you what. And you can tell I don't have much practice with this. Huh? I'm losing my balance a little bit. Okay, I'm going to press up the ascender and stand up. Okay. All right. I think I progressed a foot. All right, press that up. And I need to stand up. Oh, that was a little better. Up. Stand up. Remove the slack. Well, we're making progress, but bloody hell, I'm glad it's on a race. Okay, I'm getting a little bit of a routine, but I'm not doing it really efficient. I don't think that was the best demonstration how to ascend, at least how to use the ascender and the griggery. It took me quite some time to get the setup right, and then there's a bit of a technique to it. Yeah. You have to hang fully in the harness, on the way your leg and arms, press up the ascender as high as you can, and then by pushing up with your leg and pulling on the ascender, you bring the harness, the griggery, as close as possible to the ascender. Then you hang back, lean back in the rope, in the harness, and repeat the process. So it took me a few goes before I get a little bit of a feel for it, but yeah, it seems to work though. Right guys, that was all for today, all that I wanted to do and share with you. So a little bit of abseiling, making sure, you know, going through the routine. It's more about the safety process than anything else. But I also wanted to test out the ascending, so I never used an ascender as I just did. It takes a bit of practice. The setup is a bit awkward, and yeah, to get the routine going takes a few goes as well. I got there at the end, but by a very slow start. Guys, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, give a thumbs up, and it would be fantastic to have you as a subscriber. And I hope to see you next time. Ciao. As a teaser, I'm going to show you what I will be abseiling next time.